Check, check. Hey, everybody. Welcome, and thank you so much for coming to I'll stand up for now, to our Uganda trip recap. We're really glad that you're here, really excited to share all that God did just the last couple weeks as we were in Africa. We're going to go ahead and get started so that we don't go super late or long. Is Emma Bustle around? I think she's okay. She's coming.
She's coming.
Great. She'll just like in Uganda. She's coming. That could mean anything. It could mean she's still at home.
It could mean she's
just
4 hours away.
Yeah, she could be coming from a different state, but she's coming. Okay, I'm going to open our time in prayer, and then we have a loose agenda that we'll walk through, helping us guide our discussion of the time here. But let me pray first. Father in heaven, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and to just share about what you've done. I pray that you would receive all the honor and glory from what we talk about. God, we're so thankful for this trip and for all that we saw and experienced and learned and the ways that you worked. And our goal here tonight is to give you glory and praise and to just be overflowing with thanksgiving of what you've done. I pray that we will succeed in doing that and that the people who have come here will be blessed just in hearing all that you're doing in our hearts and in people around the world. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so I think we're going to start. Doug, I didn't put it in the... Could you pull up that video that we played on the... I didn't put it in there. I forgot to. So we do have a short video that we'll kick things off with. Tyler Young, one of our own team members here, put this together. We'll work on that.
At the end of the video.
Yeah. So we have literally over 1,000 photos that collectively our group has taken and just dumped into a shared album. And Tyler this weekend was just wading through 1,000 photos trying to find more than 1,000 to find some of the highlights. So we have a number of photos and videos that we'll show later, but just in sort of a fun recap video sort of moment, just to give you a little taste before we even get into the deep part of it. We'll show this video and hope you enjoy it.
On the plane.
We're about to get on, bro. So we just made it to
Chicago.
We're getting on to our Brussels right now. Just
back
making
at
our
it again.
Yeah, round 2. Yo guys.
We're here.
Lord of everything. Cyaragakire Katonda mu mbeera zonna.
Yes, Hunter.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is a fire right here.
Mm-hmm.
You got a leaf thing over there.
Yep.
So to make a fire burning good, like really high, let me show you. I'm gonna get some of
Okay.
those leaves and put them
Okay, go get them.
nice and good.
Okay, let's see it. Boom! Whoa! Oh man. Say hi. What did we do today?
We went on a safari that had a bunch of animals.
Animal. So here we were. We saw like 12 giraffes and like 30 elephants.
It was so crazy. So good, little baby antelopes.
That was one of the many things we learned in Uganda. Great way to thank people. Okay, so just to give you, and even our students, because they have no idea what's happening up here, what is happening. So in a moment, we're going to go through a few more photos and videos. And as we look at those, we're going to use that as an opportunity to explain a little bit about different things we experienced, different just things that we saw. And so we have this mic, and we have one more mic down by Maya. And so this is being recorded for some of our friends who can't be here in person. So if you have something to say, please say it into the mic also so everyone here can hear you and so that it can be on the recording. But I would love, if you have something to say, any of you students, raise your hand and say, I would like to make a comment about this particular photo or video or whatever. So we'll go through a few of those, and that'll give all of you a chance to see as well as hear some of the things that happened. And then we're going to pass the mic down, and I'm going to ask everybody on that went to share answers to two questions. One of them, what's the biggest way that God has worked in your heart or the heart of others through this trip that you saw? So like a personal response, God did this in my heart, or I got to experience him working in the heart of somebody else in this way. And then one favorite memory, and that could be funny or serious or whatever, just a favorite memory from the trip. When we're finished with those things, if time allows, and I hope that we will have a decent amount of time, we will take any questions from the audience. If you have any questions for our team, either as a whole or specific students, something you want to hear more about, we'd love to do a little Q&A at the end, and then we'll wrap up by praying together. So that's kind of where we're going. So students, be ready to make comments on the photos and videos that you see. Be ready to share one way that God worked in your heart through this trip and a favorite memory from the trip, okay? We did prep you with the two big questions anyways. Hopefully you've thought about it, but if not, start scrambling right now, okay? So, Doug, could we get the keynote? Oh, it's good? Okay, great. Thank you. So I'll start. Well, let me just very briefly say we went, many of you already know this, but we went to go see John and Alana. It's Alana, not Alana, not Elena, Alana. John and Alana Mahalski. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like some of our students are just figuring that out. Everybody was, including myself, I kept saying her name wrong all the time. So Jonathan and Alana Mahalski, they are missionaries that Saylorville Church supports in Uganda. Jonathan works as sort of the admin guy at Eagle's Wings Children's Village. He's also the pastor of the church that they have on site there. And this children's village is sort of a compound where it's all sort of walled in, and they have a boarding school there. They have everything from nursery, which is actually not nursery like you think nursery. It's more like preschool, primary school, secondary school. So everybody from like 4, 5, 6 years old up to like high school age, just heading into college. And some kids, maybe between 1 and 200 or something, live on site, but they have over 700 kids that come to the school from around the community and whatnot. And they've got a clinic there. They offer medical help to people in the area. They have a church there that Jonathan's the pastor of. They have a lot of different ways that they're serving within their community and helping people. And so we got to go. Primarily, most of our trip was spent at Eagle's Wings. We were serving the Mahalskis in any way that we could. We were going into the classrooms and teaching. Some of it was like Bible stories and Devo type stuff. Some of it was playing games with them. Some of it was doing crafts with them. We brought wordless bracelets. If you've ever seen those, most of you probably have. That kind of goes through the gospel with different colored beads. And so we shared the gospel with them. We got to experience church on Sunday with them. Jared was able to preach he taught the Sunday school portion, and then I preached for the service. And that was a fun and unique experience. And at the very tail end of our trip, we had a 2-day safari, which is, you saw a lot of animal photos. That's where all of those are coming from. And that was a really great experience as well. And then we came home. So that's the general vibe of what we were doing. I'm going to show some pictures. Jared, you want to click to that first one?
On the plane.
Oh, maybe I did put it in there. So we did have a bit of a rough start. Anyone, maybe especially Isaiah or Jude or Jared, want to talk about the way that our trip got going? Jude? Yeah, I got it. Yeah, grab that one over there.
It was for sure, I like to call it organized chaos, because it looked terrible on from the start, and on paper, you'd have been like, how in the world did you get to Uganda? But it was stressful, but through the Lord's providence, and that was shown in a lot of different ways. Maybe Jared or Isaiah can talk about that. We ended up getting there, but a lot of trust in the Lord for that. It was wild.
Yeah. It was really cool to see the Lord's providence through all of this. So our flight got delayed. Me, Jude, and Kylie were supposed to leave like earlier than everyone else, and our flight got delayed till past when everyone else was left. So we did not make our Brussels flight, and we had to stay in Chicago. And somehow we had a connection, and he got us going right path, and then got to leave the next day, and got to do a lot of fun things that we never thought we would have gotten to do.
The Lord was very kind, and but just to help explain a little bit, when we were booking all of the flights, most of the flights were extremely expensive, and our travel agent was able to come across a special missionary humanitarian fare that was like way better than everything else. But the downside was, since there was limited numbers of that fare available, we were all put on like these different bookings, and it was really a headache when we were actually in the airport. Saved us tons of money, but when we were there, it was kind of rough. And so there were those 3 that were actually on a slightly earlier flight that then got delayed. Thankfully, we were able to swap Kylie off of that and put Jared on so there could be an adult with these people, and that was a good thing. But they weren't able to make the flight, so the rest of our crew was on its way, and these 3 were stuck behind. And Jared, tell them what happened.
Yeah. So we were in like a mile-long line in Chicago Airport, like not joking. Well, Zay walked. It was 0.1 miles, but it felt like a mile long. It was basically the length of the entire concourse, and about an hour into standing in line, Isaiah goes, wait a minute, I feel like someone said. So anyway, one of our deacons, Dave Milheim, has a connection with someone that works at United in the airport, and he got us connected to him, and he's like, all right, I need you to trust me. I felt like I was in Mission Impossible. Step out of line. And I was like, whoa, okay. Step out of line and go to this door and knock, and my colleague will meet you there. I'm like, what in the world? I'm like at the doors, like, employees only, do not enter. And I'm like, knock on the door. And sure enough, a very kind lady came, and they put us up in a really nice hotel and gave us food vouchers. So we even saw the Lord like working ahead of time and providing those things. Even on the way, like Jude and I got to speak with an atheist gal from here in Des Moines to Chicago even, and we probably wouldn't have been on that flight otherwise. So we just got to see God work. There's probably a dozen or so ways, even in that first 24 hours. And it was totally not according to our plan, but it was according to God's plan. And so we saw how he worked. And in the end, we did make it only about 24 hours later than the rest of the team. But we did lose all of our bags, and therefore you see that picture, all of our checked bags. So we didn't have any checked bags for the first, 4 or 5 days. But it was all right. They actually listened to us, unlike some of the other people on our team who did not pack any clothes in their carry-on. These 3 did, and so we had a couple of changes of clothes to hold us over. But again, God provide. I mean, there's other people that obviously would be happy to share clothes with us, but really cool seeing how God provided and according to his plan and not ours, even from the get-go.
Even the rest of the team, it was no easy ride to Entebbe. We literally landed in Chicago and sprinted to our gate, made it just in time. And then we didn't have our boarding passes for our next flight, but they said, don't worry, they'll print them in Brussels for you. This was some people, not everybody. But then we get on our flight in Chicago, and they say, great news. We're probably going to get there like at least 45 minutes early. Everything's going great. We'll have you out of here in no time. 1 hour plus later, we're still sitting on the tarmac, having not left, and we finally land in Brussels, and they say, good news, we're only 30 minutes past when we said you'd get there. So we did not get there early, we got there late. And the moment we landed in Brussels was the moment that our next flight started boarding. So I was a little sweaty at this point. And we literally sprinted through the Brussels airport, had to get on some shuttle. They almost didn't let our whole team on, but Jeannie was like, no, we need to be on this shuttle. And yes, we packed them in Uganda style in that shuttle bus, and we did make it, and we even got the boarding passes printed and barely made that flight, and then made it exhausted to Entebbe, which probably helped us adjust to the jet lag. Everybody just crashed as soon as we got there. We had 0 breaks in airports. Everything was sprinting from one gate to another. Somebody tell us about the food. Anyone want to talk about what we ate while we were there?
All the new foods you tried.
They had some foods there that we ate back home, like they had like pineapple and mango and watermelon, which was all really good. They also had potatoes and beans, which I don't eat outside of Uganda. So yeah, that's me trying to choke down the rest of my potatoes because I didn't want to waste any.
It's a potato, a regular potato. Irish potatoes.
Yeah, they were Irish potatoes, so I wasn't used to them. Yeah, I didn't know that until I had arrived there. Also, the beans were really good, but like the first time I ate actual beans was at our Uganda meeting when we tried posho and beans, and then I didn't eat them again until we arrived in Uganda. So that was good. Posho and beans were a little bland, but the orphanage food that they gave us there was really good and high quality. We had fruits, vegetables, and we even got chicken a few nights.
Anyone else? What about, who's that person in the photo? Anybody remember her name? Nantali. What's she cutting up?
Say it in the microphone.
Jackfruit. It was jackfruit, which that was the one that tasted like gum, right? Yeah. It was like chewy like gum, but then it was like sweet. It was weird. Yeah, high chew. Tasted like a high chew.
Anybody else have any comments on the food?
Somebody say who that is in the picture.
Nantali? Is that it? Nantali. She did all of the food there, right? Cooked all of it with her person she worked with. She also did some of the laundry, I think, possibly. Yeah, she helped us with our laundry as well. She was sort of the person that took care of us the whole time we were at Eagle's Wings.
She did all the microphone. Nantali did all the cooking and cleaning and stuff at the guest house that we stayed at, which we have more photos of in just a little bit. And she was a boss.
We got some Irish potatoes, some cabbage. Jude's got some cabbage. We got some watermelon and big boy bananas, not the small ones.
Thanks.
And Maddie's got some watermelon and potatoes and carrots.
In my opinion, that was the best meal we had all Uganda. So when I saw Denver like barely getting down his potatoes, I was so disappointed.
So one of the things that we did while we were helping out around the village was working in their garden. This was at the Mahalski's like personal garden, but there's also a very large field where Eagle's Wings grows a lot of its own produce and things to help keep costs down, and they use stuff there to help feed the kids and whatnot. And so we had some groups that were helping hoe the green pepper plantation, and we had some helping in the Mahalski's garden and some that were helping another lady there that was going through a hard time. And so we got to do some physical labor. Any comments on the the garden work?
I still have blisters.
Remember when I said to wear gloves?
Spitting cobra.
Oh, yeah. There's a lady that lived right near Eagle's Wings, not on campus, but really close. And her husband had left her recently. And farming, everyone kind of has their own little homestead. You go around in the villages and everyone has some root and some maize or just some veggies, things like that, for themselves, for survival. That's what they live off of. So for her, it was kind of a big deal that now she didn't have a husband to farm for her. But she had some land back behind the house, and me and a few other people tilled up half an acre so that she would, by hand, by hoe, so that she would be able to plant some. So it was awesome that we could do that in the name of Christ and Eagle's Wings, just to be a blessing for her. That's probably where a lot of the blisters came from. Hunter Hunter, what are you doing over there, bud? And he was poking at a hole in the ground. And we know that there's a spitting cobra around. And if you see a hole in the ground, you just leave it alone. You don't need to get curious. It's okay. Nothing happened. He's okay. Nothing came out of the hole. We left it alone.
We were very popular.
Say hi. Hi.
That's you too.
Talking about that video. What was happening?
So we made either the mistake or something of letting our hair down. And as they don't normally have long hair, just because they're not able to do that because of lice, they were very curious about, like, our Mzungu hair. Mzungu is the African word for white person. Ugandan. Yes. Thank you. And so they were very curious about our hair and wanted to touch it and braid it and just see what it was, but yes. Because they didn't know what that was, because they don't have that. So somebody else want to talk about that?
Hunter story.
So at one point we were doing like this cultural dance thing. They were like performing for us, and I had 2 kids on my lap, and they loved to touch my leg hair a lot. I don't know why. And also, I left my razor at home, so I was growing a beard, and they loved touching that too.
Tyler, tell us what happened to that cultural dance.
I was pooped on.
You might need to explain that.
What you did after. Let me tell the story. You want to tell it?
I can tell it. So basically, I had a kid on my lap. Halfway through, he started pooping. I just felt like when he got up, my leg was soaked. And then Alyssa can tell the rest of the story.
So we were all kind of talking afterwards, and a group of us, and Tyler walks up and he says what he just said. This kid pooped on me, and I poop on my pants. And then he just stands there. And I said, Tyler, go change your pants. You don't have to wear poop pants all day. He said, I didn't know what to do.
You go change.
Go change your pants, please. Maybe use some soap.
Something else that we got to do, a lot of people brought donations. Some of you maybe even donated some things, and thank you very much for that. We were able to deliver a lot of clothing, and some of the people, I guess not in this photo, there are at least a couple social workers that work with Eagle's Wings, and so they know the people in the community. And oh, there is Daniel there. Yeah, you're right. So Uncle Dan is the guy in the blue on the far right there, and he's one of those social workers. And so they know the people in the community, and when we brought all these clothes, they started organizing stuff, put it into little bags, and had names of people on it. And so we were privileged to be able to go with them into the village that kind of surrounds the project there, and usually we went to 3 or 4 houses or something in small groups because we didn't want to overwhelm them with like 20 people. So we, over the span of like 3 different days, sent 3 different groups and brought it to some different homes. So anyone want to talk about an experience you had in the village delivering some of those clothes, some of the things that we saw there?
I guess for me, it was I think it was the first day we went out. We went to this one guy's house, and we dropped off clothes there, and he was actually really surprised because he wasn't going to church recently, but then after we dropped off the clothes there, he was like, oh, I finally have something nice enough to wear to church now. So we actually went to church that Sunday because we dropped off the clothes.
This picture, that lady is like the most joyful person I've like ever met. Hearing her life story and just how joyful she was, and just how as soon as we got to her house, like the first thing she said was like, come in, and gave us the best seats in her house. Yeah, it was really cool.
So one of the houses that we went into, the mother was not home, but we got to hear her story through Dan and John Mawalski. So she was a mother of 3, but her husband had left her alone to care for those kids. So when we arrived up to their house, it was kind of like, it was like out in the fields, it was out in the country area. There's like not many things around. But we got to her house, and she built that house with her own hands. She built that house with her children. You can see like their handprints all over the house, and the way that she built herself up that way, and how strong she was as a mother, like through that, and just trusting in the Lord. And she even started her own garden. She started her own crops, and you could see like the life that she made for herself. And it was really cool just to see how she just grew through that hardship, and she was able to use those skills that she learned through that, and was able to go around to the houses around her, and she was able to make money and just support her children through that. But it was really cool to hear her story, so I thought that was neat. But yeah.
So along with this woman in this picture, well, typically a lot of women, especially in like Africa, Uganda, they are forced into marriages. And then typically, like, the husbands won't be amazing, so they'll end up leaving, or they will fall into bad habits. But this mother, I got to meet her child the day before I met her, and her child was in a wheelchair. And it was really sweet to see, again, just how joyful she was. And you know, this wasn't actually her house. This was a house that she was sitting for. But she was just so joyful, and you could really see just her reliance on God and how happy she was, and patient. So it was really cool to see a lot of these people who were just being so dependent on God through all of their rough circumstances.
I would say personally, going into the village was one of the more impactful parts of the trip for me. If you've ever experienced a situation where you've witnessed extreme poverty, this was it. This is where we saw like the worst poverty that I've ever personally witnessed. Some of the houses that we went to were literally mud shacks. I mean, they had sticks that were propping the mud up long enough for it to harden or whatever, and it was just creating a one-room shack that was, you know, something that prior to this I'd only seen in a movie or something. And so extreme poverty. And some people went to the houses of believers, and you've heard testimony of some of the joy that they have, even in the midst of this. The people that I went to, I'm not aware that any of them were believers, and I didn't have that experience of like, oh my goodness, they had so much joy despite their lack of means. It was wonderful to be able to bless them, and it was a very Christ-like thing to do, to provide for obvious needs that we had. The first place that we went to, which was definitely the most rundown, one-room shack, the guy had a restroom that was built, 10 yards out away from the house that Eagles Wings students had come and built for him, that was also a mud shack with a hole in the ground. And they had a farm that was not well taken care of and wasn't producing very much because all the different crops were mixed together and nothing was organized well. The only way this family was surviving was because the social workers come and like supplement the food that they get from their farm with other stuff. And he was very grateful to be receiving the stuff that we brought, and we got to see his children walk past. A young boy who was maybe, what do you think, Sarah, 4 years old or something? 3, who was wearing no pants or underwear, just like he needed clothes. And we were able to provide that, which was a great blessing to see. At the same time, though, I think it hit me as we went to each of these houses. The final house that we went to was a Muslim couple, and their house was probably the nicest out of all we went to. It was still very not good, but compared to the mud shacks we'd been seeing, it was nice. And they were Muslim. They were wearing some traditional Muslim garments and things, and so it was just more visually apparent that these people are not just living in physical poverty, but spiritual poverty. And I think that was maybe what hit home the most, is you were seeing the physical stuff. It was very apparent, but with that last family, it was obvious that there was great spiritual poverty as well. And like I said, the others were very grateful to receive necessities from us, but there was no joy. And if you were to ask them, what do you need more than anything, the answer would not be Jesus. It would be, I need more stuff. And they did need more stuff, but they didn't understand their deepest need. And so that was an experience that I'm still processing a little bit. But it was certainly eye-opening for sure. Something that I will not soon forget. This is one of the mud shacks there. Maybe you can't see it super well, but you can kind of see the sticks that are running like horizontally through there, and then the brown is just mud, and then they've got kind of a tin roof that they've propped on top of there. And that's Dan again, the social worker that's there with us. And this was somebody's kitchen, basically like a little 2 walls and a roof. And this is the kitchen at Eagles Wings. Very clean. Anything anyone wants to say about any of the rest of those photos or anything? Anybody want to say anything about the villages that didn't? Okay, we'll keep moving then. So here is the guest house that we stayed, a far cry from the mud huts that some people in the villages were living in. This is the common area. There's a nice large table that we got to eat at there, the kitchen, and just sort of a space with some couches and things. We played a lot of games in the evening. It was a great time of team bonding. Who was the Ultimate Rook Tournament champions? Jared and Alyssa. Yeah, we played by their rules. If you've ever played Rook, you know that everybody plays Rook differently. They've all got their own house rules. They play the right way. And there was this courtyard area just outside that. So to the left is where the ladies stayed, and Jared and Alyssa stayed in the other room. And then the boys were on the right side, and Jeannie and I were over there as well. And there was this courtyard, and there was a little basketball hoop, which was nice. We got to shoot some hoops with people and hit volleyballs around, as you saw me so deftly handling the volleyball serve in the video earlier. Anybody have anything you want to say about the guest house and the accommodations that we got to stay in?
I think a lot of it was just like Andrew, you said, a lot of good team bonding, especially Saturday and Sunday. Those were kind of our off days, and we played a lot of rook. A lot of rook, but it was well worth it and well worth the time because I haven't hung out with like a lot of these people on this team, but I did learn a lot about them and their personality, and that was always fun. And also getting to know the Mahalski's kids, Gus and Holden. They were basically with us like the whole day, every day. And especially Holden. Hunter, you can talk about this if you want, because you seem the closest to him, but he was a huge blessing to us and our team. So,
something else that I have written down as something that I took away from the trip was just something that probably all of you would know, but that we don't often practice in our lives, which is that Christian fellowship is greater than scrolling on your phone. And a lot of our students didn't have internet access. A couple of them had like a travel pass or something. It was probably still really slow though. And some people were going completely phoneless for the whole trip. And so you didn't have the distraction of constant texts and emails and all this stuff. And so we got to hang out a lot, and that was really fun. You want to say anything about Holden?
Yeah. So Holden is the oldest of 3 of the Mahalski's kids. He was 6 years old. He showed up, I think it was the first or second day, and we were just kicking a soccer ball around with him as a group. And then I started messing around with him, and then he asked me to go back to his house to play Legos with him. So, and me and Levi, we both did. And then it just kind of went from there. And he, at the end of the trip, he said that I was his best friend. So, yeah.
Holden and Hunter were both crying when we were leaving. So it was tough. It was tough.
So this is this is actually in the church, but the whole this is the nursery class, which was like 150 kids or so. And Alyssa's teaching in the class, sharing the gospel, laying it down, bringing the heat. And we got to go outside, play a lot of games with the classrooms, taught them some youth group games, learned some of their own games. We learned this awesome little chant that they do.
Oh, yes. I never was gonna see. Oh, yes. I love Jesus. Oh, yes. Jesus, Jesus, my Savior. I love Jesus. Oh, yes, I do. Oh, yes. My name is Kylie. Oh, yes. I love Jesus. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I do. Jesus.
So I'm expecting that all the way up to Lake Ann next week. That's going to be rough. So anyone want to say anything about the classrooms, our experiences, playing games, teaching lessons, anything in the classrooms that we did?
So the classrooms, my favorite part of the whole thing, right? I walk in there, I see like 150 kids, and I don't know what it actually was. I'm probably way less than that. But they were like, I started helping them tie their bracelets, and they would just like look at me for a second, and then they would like smack me, and then look away, and then they would look at me again and wait for me to look at them, and then they'd be like, or they would. One kid started grabbing my cheek, and he'd hold it there, and then he just goes, and I'm over here like, oh, and he's like, oh. But wait, am I allowed to talk about the stick rule, Jeannie?
The stick rule?
Do you remember that? Anyways.
All right, move on. No, you do it.
Just say it's community discipline.
Well, it was just, there was like 4 teachers and just like so many kids, but they were all so well behaved because of the community discipline aspect of it all.
It takes a village to raise a child, very literally.
we did get to do a Sunday service there. This is not their church building, but they moved the service to, this is actually where we would eat lunch with all the students during the school week. But they did the Sunday service here because with the addition of our team, they didn't think we would fit, and we definitely wouldn't have. There was a lot of people there. So, like I said before, Jared taught Sunday school. I got to preach the message. And anybody have any takeaways from Sunday service? I mean, you don't have to talk about all the great points that I made in my message or anything like that. You could just talk about like the cultural experience of being in a different church besides Saylorville.
So during the Sunday service, we got up and we sang My Lighthouse for them because we had done that with some of the students. And we had to explain what a lighthouse was. We hadn't thought of that ahead of time. But then the other thing we did was Andrew explained we had made these wordless bracelets with all the kids and had like shared the gospel with them through the colors and all of that. And so Andrew explained, because we had gotten a little tip from Jonathan, explained, we made these bracelets with the kids this week, and this is what each of the colors represents, and kind of giving the gospel again. So if you see your kids wearing these bracelets, like it's a reminder of what the gospel means. And one of the Ugandan pastors got up right after that and said, some of your kids are bringing these bracelets home and are telling you that they're good luck charms, and they're using these bracelets to like put on injuries and to say that it's going to heal them. So one thing we really didn't occur to us was just this cultural thing of even like spirit worship or kind of good luck charms and things. And so some of the kids just were telling their parents that kind of thing, and some of the parents were taking the bracelets from them so that they could have that. So that was just kind of an interesting learning experience for us to, even though we thought we made it really clear what the bracelets were for, we made it clear again one more time just to make sure everybody, the parents heard, at least the ones who were at church, heard what we were doing and why we had done that with them.
We got to eat s'mores with them. That was fun. This was another one of those team bonding times that Jude mentioned. We also got to do a safari. This was super awesome. And I will say, the safari, I was expecting to enjoy it, but it was a very worshipful experience, just seeing God's creation in this way, in just a more intense way than anything I've ever experienced before. We got to see Cape buffalo by the thousands, antelope by the thousands. We saw so many more animals than I expected. There was a rhino sanctuary that we went to. We walked to those rhinos, which was terrifying and also super cool. Apparently they have trees in Africa that are cactus. It's a tree with bark, but with cactus. Maybe this is not surprising to you, but to me and Jeannie, we were like, there are trees that have cactus on them. It was really awesome and bizarre. Yeah, like there's just an elephant right there.
Yeah, kidding me right now? Just casually. What up, my boy?
Just a casual elephant sighting. But on the way to the safari, Isaiah had an adventure, a safari of his own, if you will. Isaiah, why don't you share what this view reminds you of?
Okay, personally, I'm not going to tell this story. I'll give this to Maddie, because Maddie tells this way better than I would, because this story is painful for me. Don't drink chocolate milk.
Oh dear. Okay, so all right, so we had left at like what? We got up at like we got up. Breakfast was at 5:30. We left at 6. It was like a AM. Yeah, AM. Sorry. It was like a 6 hour drive. 6 hour drive. We were making stops like every 45 minutes for some reason, get snacks and whatever. It was the second stop. We're all in there getting snacks because we're hungry. And Isaiah's like, oh bro, chocolate milk. like, oh, okay, it's on the shelf, not even in the fridge. He's like, dude, this looks so good. I gotta try it. So he buys one, but it was in the fridge. So it was fine because it was in the fridge. And he comes back, and we're sitting in the car, and he just like downs the entire thing in like 5 seconds. Jeannie's like, if that was me, I would not have drank that. He downs the entire thing. He's like, oh, best chocolate milk in my life. And we're like, it's like, what, 20 minutes later, he's like, oh man, my stomach hurts. We're like, oh man, here we go. He's like, everybody like, Isaiah, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. So it was Winston, me, Sarah, Hunter, Isaiah, Jeannie and Andrew, and then our driver. So we're all like, oh, Isaiah, like, are you good? Like, do we need to stop? He's like, no, I'm fine. 2 minutes later, he's like, oh guys, my stomach really hurts. We're like, oh man, we better stop. He's like, no, it's okay. It's like 30 seconds later, oh, we gotta pull over. We gotta pull over. So we pull over. Thankfully, Winston had taken a dump at the gas station, so he had bought toilet paper and brought it with us. So he's like, oh, Zaya. He's like, Zaya, I got you. So he throws the toilet paper out the window. Zaya's like hustling out the car. He goes and finds a spot in the woods. Eamon's like, oh, this is a great spot. It's just a great spot. And so as he's getting out of the car, he's like really hurrying because he's really got to poop. And so he like slides on the seat and he gets out. And all of a sudden, it was Jeannie and Sarah up here, so we had to like go around Sarah, and Sarah like got out so that he could get out. And she looks at the seat and there's like some stain on it. It was like something, she's like, oh my goodness, Isaiah pooped on the seat. So we all were just dying laughing, and Eamon's like, what pooping? He's like, oh no, it's just a gum stain or something. The last, you're like, oh good. So then Isaiah comes back, we're like, oh Isaiah, how are you feeling? He's like, oh, I'm doing so good, so much better. 5 minutes down the road, oh man, I literally, this is the worst stomach pain in my life. He's like gripping the chair in front of him, just like rocking back and forth. And so we like pull over, we like followed where everyone else was parked because we had stopped already, so we were kind of behind. He like bolts out of the car and he's like, dude, where's the bathroom? I gotta go. And Eamon's like, oh, there's no bathroom here. He's like, what? And so he's like, go. We all hop back in the car. He's like running for his life. He's like, Eamon, go. So we speed down the road and we get out. And then he goes, you had to go again. And as we're sitting waiting, Hunter is trying to kill a bee that's like stuck in the window. It was like this slide window, and it was like in between, and he's like smacking it with his shoe as like, in a pet. Oh, it was so bad. So Isaiah comes back. He's like, oh, I'm feeling a lot better. We're like, okay, do you need anything? He's like, no. Or like 5 more minutes. He's like almost in tears. Oh, my stomach, bro. It's never hurt so bad. This is the worst stomach pain in my life. It was like, and it was so funny at first, and this. Yeah, so as Isaiah's like almost in tears in the front, Winston's like, what'd you say? Like, imagine being on schedule, or like, it's like, oh, what a great time. It was really funny at first, but by this point we were like, oh, okay, it's actually kind of serious. We were like trying not to laugh in like the back, like, oh crap, he's almost crying. So he's like, oh, we're stomach pain. And we're like, and then it's like 5 more minutes, like, bro, my stomach. So we pull over again. We're like so far behind at this point. And so Eamon was like, oh, I got you. Like, it's got to be food poisoning. We kept offering him drugs, but he didn't want any. But then he got his ginger tea and lay down. So we had like 3 people like crammed in the back. Sarah's sitting on like this cooler. We're all like, as Isaiah's laying across like the front 2 seats. But yeah, he got healed. It's okay. Ginger tea really pulled through there.
So this is a typical pit stop restroom for those of you wondering.
Squatty potty.
Yeah, there's not really a seat there at all. You really got to squat. So that's what Isaiah was experiencing for the more luxurious parts of his episodes. I did feel really bad for Isaiah, but it was hard not to laugh at times. But it probably was the scariest part of the trip because, for me personally, because I'm leading this thing, and Isaiah was seriously in a lot of pain. He was like, "Oh, it hurts so much. Oh, worst pain of my entire life." And I had no idea what to do. And so, other than stop every 5 minutes for him to use the restroom.
Jeannie's like, oh, just drink some water.
Yeah. But everyone was great about it. And now that he's alive and it's done, Isaiah's a great sport about it. So it's great. Okay, so unfortunately, it's hard to capture good photos. A boda is like a motorcycle. And you see a lot of things on a boda. And we have like 3 or 4 pictures, but if people want to just share something that you saw on a boda, share.
Okay, so on the right there, the guy in the red, it's hard to see, but he's holding a goat with both hands, not holding onto the motorcycle, and he has the goat tied around his waist.
A live goat.
It was well and alive. It was looking at me. Yeah, and I also saw another guy. This was like on our way there. There was a guy ratchet strapping a live chicken to the back of his motorcycle.
I saw 5 grown men on one boda. 5.
So I saw 2 weird things on them. One, there was one. I don't know if it was a man or a woman, but they were holding a mannequin like this with an other hand on the steering wheel, like a full-on mannequin, and they were just going down the road with a mannequin that was a headless mannequin, and then the other, there was like a baby stroller like strapped to the back with the fake baby on it.
I saw a boda. It wasn't driving, but it was sitting on the edge of the road, just sticking some poles that were like probably 10 yards long, just right into the road. We're lucky we didn't hit one.
As you see there on the picture on the left, this guy had like over 1,000 like takeout boxes strapped to the back of his bike. That's really impressive.
I saw one impressively with probably like 19-foot boards going like out in front of them with 2 people on the boda, just going down a side road, trying not to impale anyone.
I guess I saw this one boda that had I think he had like 2 poles, and they all had like a bunch of cups on them. Like he just had like a whole boda full of cups. I don't know.
I just remember us almost like hitting one of the bodas. Like a lot of bodas, they would just drive in front of you, and I was always like getting like half a heart attack. So I was like, oh, the driver just keeps going. We're going like 50 down like the main road. There's like 50 vans by us and a bunch of motorcycles just coming in and out. And I was like, we're probably gonna kill somebody, but we didn't, so that was nice.
On the way to the village with me, Jared, and Isaiah, and Jonathan in his truck, we saw a boda with, what, Jared, 200 pineapples? 300 pineapples? There was so many pineapples, and I don't know how that thing ran with all that weight on the back.
So like the same as other people said with all the poles. So like we're driving to the village, and I just see this pole. It was on a boda. There was like 3 of them, and it's like, I thought I was gonna lose Hunter for a second, because like Hunter's right here. I just see a pole like, and it's like I was like, on a motorcycle. Also, 3 dudes just cruising down with shotguns. They're all just chilling there with their shotgun, just flying.
Okay, I guess this isn't really weird, but it was weird. So it was just these 2 guys, these 2 like grown men we're sitting in our bus, so all of our windows are open. We're like driving nice and slow down the road. It's like these 2 grown men, and Callie's sitting over here at the window, like playing with her hair, just like looking out the window, right? And this guy like looks, and he's like, like through the window, and I was like, dude, Kylie, not safe. Like could have snatched you. But then, not to like change the mood, but like we did see these 2 people like dead on the side of the road. Or like, yeah, there was an accident. We were like in the traffic for a while, and like everybody like it was just like tons and tons of people just like crowding. And nobody's doing anything. They're just like laying on the ground. But yeah, that was hard. You're welcome. Now back to the. Anyway.
Yeah, back to the crazy Boda stacking, whatever is on these cars. But as Zay was talking about the poles, most of the time they were horizontal. But we were going down like the highway, going like, I don't even know, 75, maybe 80 miles per hour. We were going fast, that's all I know. Kilometers, yeah, I don't. Conversions, who knows? But these poles are like 10 feet high and they're just wiggling back and forth and we're zooming down this road. I'm like, if this pole flies off this car, we're all dead.
I'm pretty sure Hunter and I saw a guy driving a motorcycle holding a flat screen TV. He was driving and there was just this huge flat screen TV on the Boda with him, and I was just like, how is he even multitasking like that?
There's definitely one where there's a coffin like on the back of it, just horizontal. I personally try not to look out of the window too much because because of all the Bodas that would come up like right next to you, and it just stressed me out because they would go in front of you, there would be cars coming at you, and like it was terrifying. I mean, you got used to it eventually, but I definitely did see multiple families. Yeah, whole families. Yes, including babies just strapped to the back and the front and just everywhere, and like giant bushels of bananas or something just piled on the back too. So like 6 people and some bananas. It was crazy.
Well, I think everybody pretty much covered everything, but I did see a lot of Bodas with like thousands of eggs strapped to the back in cartons. And I also like to comment, we saw a lot of banana trucks, like everywhere. What was the banana trucks called? Nightlife banana trucks.
Talk about this one. Do you know what's going on there?
Yeah. So we, one of the Ugandans from Eagle's Wings came along with us on our safari and kind of helped us through everything. She was a blessing. But we were asking her about the Bodas. I can't really think of anything new, but we said, you know, what have you seen? Jared was like, I saw 5 grown men. Is that like, how many have you seen? And she said, I've seen 6. And we were just asking her like, what can they not carry? She's like, oh, you can move a whole house on a Boda. That picture there, it's just a whole shop. He just packed up his whole shop on the Boda. And you just move it all, everything. Anything goes on a Boda.
Yeah, that's it. I don't have anything new.
We were very grateful that the Lord protected us on the roads of Uganda. It did help that most of the time we were the biggest vehicle on the road. None of us were in Bodas. We were on like a 30-passenger bus. So if we did get in an accident, it would be someone else getting the raw end of the deal, not us. This is just a brief video sort of showing a little bit about what driving through town was like. Most of the time we were not going very fast because there's always people and shops on the side of the road and there's speed bumps everywhere. There's no traffic lights really at all. There's just one paved road going through and everything off of that is a dirt road basically. And you see a lot of, and all of it is just one way. They drive on the left side of the road, and as you can tell, there's basically one lane forward and one lane coming at you the entire way. There's no interstate. There was only one portion right near Entebbe where there was like a toll road that was a nice road. The rest of the time it was this sort of situation. So you never really got going very fast. It took us like 6+ hours, more like 7 with Isaiah's episode, to get to the national park that was near the northern part of Uganda. And Uganda is about twice as big as Iowa. And so I'm thinking, man, to get to like the far north of Iowa, it takes like an hour and a half. So even if it was twice as far, you'd think we could get there in like 3 hours tops. But it took us like 6 hours because we're going like 30 the whole time. Yeah. And just the infrastructure is truly awful. I mean, there was one bridge that Jonathan said, oh, we're so lucky that this bridge isn't washed out, because it got washed out during the rainy season. And if it wouldn't have been open, it would have made like a 2-hour drive a 6-hour drive, because that's like the only bridge at all. Yeah, I guess the Hubenthals experienced that when they were there. And so we were all talking about like, wow, that's crazy. And Hunter was like, still better than Ankeny roads. But in all seriousness, it made us very thankful, I think, for the infrastructure that we experience here in the U.S. Okay, we're running low on time. We are going to have to move relatively quickly, but I want to pass the mic down and just have students share maybe one way that God worked in your heart through this trip. And if you have you don't have to share a memory if it's already been shared, but if you have something different that you want to share, then do so.
Okay, so it's what God taught us, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to say like the major thing that I learned was like what true joy looks like. Especially like the first and second day, I was expecting to be miserable. I was expecting not to enjoy it, but I actually was, and I was enjoying it way more than I thought I was, and I was very confused by it. I didn't understand. I'm like, I'm in Africa, 8,000 miles away from anything I've ever known, doing something I don't want to do, but yet I'm finding joy out of it. And I didn't understand it, and it was very eye-opening to finally understand that getting joy is by giving.
I'd say the main thing I learned is to not be just a hearer of the word, but also be a doer of the word. And I feel like the Lord has just taught me a lot through this, and He's helped me realize that I feel like I should go into ministry one day. And then a story. I almost bled to death in the bathroom. So basically, it was one of the nights, and I went to bed. Just as I was laying my head down on the pillow, my nose just started gushing blood, and I'm like, oh. So I ran into the bathroom. Nobody knows what's going on. Everyone else in the room just thinks I'm going to the bathroom or something. I'm in there for about 20 minutes. It's just pouring blood. I can't get it to stop at all. I'm just in there like, I'm starting to feel lightheaded. I'm like, whoa, I don't feel good. And then all of a sudden, I just collapse backwards, and I catch myself on the wall. And then I'm like, so I was able to get back up, and then it lasted for about another 10 minutes. I was super lightheaded. And then it finally stopped, and like I feel so sick at this point. And I go to bed, and Jude's like, "You okay, bud?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I almost bled to death." And then I told everybody else in the morning what happened, and I was lightheaded that whole day, and I did not feel good. So yeah.
This is one of the trials of being a leader in student ministry. Some kids do not talk to you. Even when they're bleeding out in the bathroom. He wakes up the next morning and just says, "So, guy," just very casually, "I almost bled to death last night." I'm like, "Tyler, you need to tell me when you're bleeding to death." Jeannie and I are just going to bed thinking everything is fine, and Tyler's bleeding out in the bathroom and not telling anyone. We're like, "You need to say something if you're not okay. Like, tell us if you're sick. Tell us if you're bleeding out. Tell us, like, what's going on." And some people still did not learn that. Also, bring your life-saving medication. If you sometimes get nosebleeds that will persist for 30 minutes straight and you have a medication at home that will save you when that happens, it would be nice to bring that to Uganda. Just for future reference. Levi, why don't you share?
That's a hard transition. All right, well, anyways, I guess kind of like Hunter, for me, it's the joy that everybody there had, because when I was going there, I imagined everybody is very poor, which a lot of them were. So I was kind of like, they can't really be like super happy people since they're like so poor. And we have so much money. It's like we got to have more joy than them. But just like Hebrews 13, verse 5, keep your life free from love of money and be content with what you have. For he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. That verse is so true because people there have so much more joy than people I've seen in America, even though they literally make no money. The adults there probably make maybe $30 a month on average. And it's just crazy how much more money we make than them and how much more stuff we have than them.
Yeah, So one word that like just like explains like a bunch of what I learned there is gratitude. Yeah, there's not much more I can say about that. And then one of my favorite moments from the trip was both around the campfire and then in the church, singing. I enjoy singing, and I always forget the reference, but Andrew talked about it. It's like all the nations singing together in their own tongues, and we got to like basically get a sneak peek of heaven through that. So, yeah.
I think for me, part of it was learning to give up control, because when you were there, you didn't find out what you were doing until like maybe an hour or less before it actually happened. 5 minutes before you left. So we're leaving now. So just giving up any control and expectations to God and trusting that we're doing exactly what He wants us to do and not just going along with fast, immediately, you're going here now plans. And also just seeing Jonathan and Alana's joy through what they were doing, even after John had told us about he's had so many health issues and struggles with a lot of things, and just seeing how joyful and willing to serve, even though he can be in pain, like he's willing to serve and do anything for the village. So
mine is kind of based off of a couple of theirs. Just having joy and being doers of the word, just spreading His word. I think it was really cool to come back on Sunday, and I went to the second church service, even though I had woken up at like 4 a.m. that day because jet lag. But they were talking about just like missionary work kind of throughout there, and just spreading the word not only to people across countries but also just your neighbors, just being more open about the word. And I thought it was really cool because I think it was during Jared's message, he talked about one thing that pastor has said, so a quote that he had said, sin will take you farther than you want to go, keep you farther than or longer than you want to say, and cost you more than you want to pay. And so one of our ladies that worked in our house, her name was Rachel. She came with us on the safari. We had a little women's Bible study, I think the day before we left or something like that. And she quoted that, and I think it stuck with me because it's like we're spreading this word, and then it's getting spread even more, and then that just kind of ripples, which I thought was cool. And so on the safari, so there was 3 vans. One had Andrew and Jeannie, one had Jared and Alyssa, and one had Rachel. And my favorite thing that happened, it's very random, but it's something, it was like a joke Denver had said, and I want him to say it again, but Rachel and our driver cracked up. It was so funny.
What was it? It was
the meow.
Oh, I had seen a video before going to Uganda of like a third world country, and this white guy ate food, and he thought it was chicken. And this was sort of just like, I was thinking back to this, and I was like, what if this happened here to us? We have no clue what we're really eating. But he was eating it, and he was like, wow, this is so good. Is it chicken? And she was like, yes, meow, meow, meow. And he was like, no! So I was like, I told that to them because we've eaten a lot of random things there that we don't quite know the ingredients to.
Mostly just Irish potatoes.
Yeah, that got me. I can eat anything except the Irish potatoes.
Okay, so I guess I had a lot of takeaways, but a major one, I really love being able to hear the testimonies of the staff members down there and just being able to talk to some of them. I got to talk with one of them on the last night. His name was Masumba Allen. Was his Masumba Allen? So I got to share my testimony with him, but I remember thinking back to the bonfire night a night or two before then, and just hearing their testimonies, the way that they they just started out with just like praising and thanking God and like all the goodness that he's done in their lives and how he's worked through their lives. So it was just very encouraging to like hear their testimonies, because whenever I think of my testimony, I always just go automatically like towards myself, which is not right, because it's about God and like what he's doing in your life. And it's all to like the praise of the glory of him, and it's gratitude through that. And that's where we're able to find our joy. And you could see it in like the way that they would just like walk just around the campus, or the way that they would lead you around, and you see them with the kids. And you could see that joy and that gratitude towards God, and how much like they passionately like loved him. And it was just like very genuine. It was very genuine. You could see that in their lives. So that was very encouraging to see that, and it encouraged me to like look at my testimony even like in a different light, to like see where God had brought me, and to like remember what he's done in my life and all the goodness. So I thought that was really neat. But yeah. And I guess like a favorite memory of mine was just like, honestly, I love like the village was my favorite part. The safari was good, but I wish we had spent more time at the village, because I feel like that's where like the main memories were made and like the main impact was made. I really love being able to get to know all like the little kids. I love the little kids, and I love the older kids too, but the little kids were so sweet and fun. And there was just this one girl, her name was Brenda, and she was just a ball of energy, and she would just love to like jump up and down. She just wanted to dance with you, and she would just have this biggest smile on her face, and she was the sweetest thing. But that was probably one of my favorite memories. But yeah.
For me, I've had a heart for missions probably since freshman year of high school. But if you ask me what I want to do after high school, I probably would have just told you like military or trade school. I didn't really let people know that I wanted to do missions. It was kind of like the last thing I would do. But ever since then, the Lord's just built that desire in me to do missions, and especially going to Engage Global last year, that like really set the fire. And I've always just wanted to see what that would look like to do and go out and do missions. And I think that's what the Lord put me in Uganda for, is just to see what that looks like, and how I could do that in spots to fill and just the need. So what the Lord did in my life in Uganda was really solidify my desire to do missions after high school. And I talked with Andrew, yesterday, 2 days ago, Monday? I think it was Monday. And we just talked about what that looks like and just plans for the future. And now that I have a plan, I'm going to trust in the Lord. But ultimately, he can do whatever he wants. But right now, it's just all out for missions. Favorite memory, though, one of them, there's so many, but for sure, I remember we were laying in bed, all of us were, and I think it was Winston was like, is everyone in bed? And I'm like, no, I think Tyler's still in the bathroom. And it's probably midnight right now, and lights are out, we're all laying in bed, and everyone's quiet, everyone's going to sleep, and I'm laying in bed, I'm like, he's been in there a while, and I just hear like toilet paper being ripped. I remember hearing like a slap against the wall, and I'm like, I was slightly concerned, but I'm like, I think he's fine. I checked the clock, it's been 20 minutes or something. He walks out, he's like, guys, I almost died. And everyone's asleep, and I'm like, Tyler, are you okay? What happened? He's like, I almost bled to death. And the next morning, I think it was Hunter or Winston was like, why is there so much blood on the floor in our bathroom? And Tyler gave the whole spiel. So that was really scary, but I found very funny. He cleaned it up.
So one thing I really learned, I guess you could say growth. I didn't really realize until I was there, and like the effect of like the jet lag and the waking up, not having my phone. I had a lot more time to dive into my Bible and like prayer. And I think Andrew said that we shouldn't go through our walk with God going for a passing grade, which is what I realized then is what I had been doing for like a long time. I was like, I'm gonna do as little as I can to get away with it, but I wasn't growing. So it was like, in Uganda, I feel like I've grown more in my walk with God than I have in like 11 months. And then I guess a fun story. So there was one day I see this swing in the distance, and I'm like, I gotta get on this swing. And I think it was me, Holden, and Sarah, I don't know. We find this, no, I don't think it was Gabby. Was it Gabby?
Yeah, the little boy.
Okay.
Okay,
Anyways, so apparently it's Gabby on the swing. I don't remember it's him. But I'm trying to talk to him. I'm like, hey, dude. And he's just looking at us, and he's just like, and he won't speak a lick of English. And then I go, I'm 6 years old. And he looks at me and he's like, no, you're not. You couldn't be 6 years old. I'm 6 years old. And like he just kept going. And And that was pretty funny in the moment.
I would say for me, just like overall like thankfulness. For me, I got a lot closer with a lot of like the high school students, and just like a lot of them are living there because like a lot of them were like house families, like they're living there as orphans. So just like seeing how thankful they were for like everything that they had, even though it wasn't much, especially like going out to the village. I wouldn't say that I specifically saw like tons of joy. It was more just like, oh, thank you. And just like everywhere you went, it was thank you for being here and everything that you're doing, when for us, it didn't really seem like all that much, but to them, it means the world. And just that shift in perspective, like this means so much more than we thought. And just having that attitude. A memory for me, though, is we had debrief one night, and Tyler was sharing about his poop story. And he was like, and then it hit me, and then he falls back and just flat onto his back out of his chair, and everybody just died. Oh my goodness, it was so epic. But here you go.
Alrighty. Well, back to what I guess God taught us or taught me. Specifically, I think the biggest thing that I pulled was just the life-changing power that the gospel has. I think from kind of piggybacking off of what Andrew said about the villages, you could see that there was a lot of spiritual deadness and spiritual poverty. And the people who lived on the children's villages, like the men who were like probably deacons of the church and just really invested in serving the Lord, they understood that prospering spiritually was far more better than trying to prosper on this earth. And I think that was just a huge thing of like, you could see blatantly who was a believer and who was not, just because of what they knew that their need was. So I think that was the biggest thing I learned. But back to our funny stories. I'm not going to repeat one because Zay's story was obviously the best one. But we were driving in the bus going to the children's village, and Winnie was like, I don't know why my U.S. cellular is not working. And I go, Winnie, we are not in the U.S. This is Uganda. So it was just funny at the moment, but.
The thing that God taught me, and I feel like a ton of our team, just a general theme, was patience and gratitude. Patience just because we were in a lot of crazy circumstances and around people 24/7. And you just, if you wanted something or you didn't want to do something, you were forced to do it pretty much. So it just gave you a lot of patience. Gratitude, it just really showed that we take a lot of things that God has given us materially for granted. I just came back to the U.S. or even like the nicer airports in Europe, and I was just like, we have so much stuff and we're still complaining and unhappy. So just to have more gratitude. And the thing that I felt impacted me the most was on like the second to last day. It was the day we were leaving for the airport, and I was like sick and tired, and just I was not feeling very good that day. And then I was like, but why am I really here? And I was like, I'm here to serve the Lord, and through any circumstance, I can still have joy serving the Lord. So if I was going there on my own accord or to hang out with friends or to go on a vacation, I would have been like super done, unhappy. But once I reminded myself what the main goal was, that just sort of pushed all the worldly things away. One of my favorite memories was playing soccer and volleyball with all the teenagers there. They're super good at both of the sports and competitive, which was fun. And I also liked learning Luganda because I felt like that was the pathway to like their deeper culture. Was once you knew the language, they sort of you sort of got to know the culture better and individuals better.
I just learned a lot about everyone's gratitude there, and like no matter the age, they're all welcoming and like just grateful that you were there. And then my favorite memory is just being in the nursery with all the kids, and they love giving high fives. So like every single one of those high fives was amazing.
I think the biggest and most convicting takeaway that I had was seeing what a relationship with the Lord should be like, outside of like all the distractions we have here. Because here we have so many other things that we try to fill our time with and so much stuff, and always thinking about how we get more money, more stuff, a bigger house. And in Uganda, all they have really is Jesus. And so that's their biggest focus. And so that was convicting because it's so easy to get distracted, and seeing all of them just always like thinking about that, talking about that, it was really cool to see. And my favorite memories were definitely, I say, all of our debrief times, and especially hearing Jonathan and Alana's testimonies, and they were talking to us. It was super cool to hear their stories and to hear how God was working in everyone's lives, and to also worship together, to sing hymns. It was so cool. So.
I think the biggest thing for me that I took out of this trip was prior to the trip, in church sermons and in devos and podcasts that I was listening to, the main theme was humility and selflessness. And so going into the trip, I was praying. I was like, God, help me to be able to just give myself to these kids and the people we're serving. Help me love them with love like how you love us. And so that was my prayer going into there. And just seeing how God used me and the team throughout that week, just like the kids are so overjoyed, and how we all put everything into teaching the gospel to them, and just playing games with them and having so much fun. And then like they have church there. The gospel isn't anything new, but I was praying. I was like, God, what is something that our team could give them, whether it be new or whether it just help the gospel get deeper into some of their lives. And so by the end of the week, at the bonfire night, some of the neighbors, they shared their testimonies, and I couldn't see who it was because it was really dark, but one of the neighbors said that the kids have learned love from how we interacted with each other. And that almost made me cry because it was what I had been praying for, to just have, like, for us to be an example of Christ to them, I think was really impactful, because a lot of the kids there looked up to us, and just having that Christ-like example was something that we could give them in addition to the gospel message. Yeah, and then one of my favorite memories was on the last night, we got invited to an all-girls dance party, and Jeannie accompanied us, and just hearing Sarah talk to some of the girls there about life in America and life in Uganda, and there's a lot of, like, they assumed a lot, and just having Sarah talk to them about how life isn't easy here. Like, we still have to work a job, and we still have to earn a living and stuff. And so just kind of breaking down those barriers of just like you're an American, you have it easy, no wonder you follow Jesus. Just hearing her break those down and making a way for the gospel to just get deeper in their hearts, and hopefully that continue to spread throughout the village there, that the gospel's for everybody.
I love what Maya said. That was one of the things I was thinking is whenever the Ugandans would share a testimony or say something about what was going on in their life, they always started with praise the Lord, and the focus was on God, and that was really neat. The other thing was just to see the Lord answer prayers, and just so many things, from even small things of like our luggage arriving, and some of them didn't, but everybody else has arrived, and those kinds of things. But also one of my biggest prayers was, Lord, help us to be a blessing to Eagle's Wings and not a burden. And by the end of the week, we were having conversations with Jonathan and Alana, and they just said what a blessing that our team was for them. And then Jared and I stepped out of the airport in Chicago and dropped a bag off to the other missionaries. The doctor who's normally there is in Chicago right now. And so we had a bag for him that we dropped off to them. And they, even just a couple minutes, we got to talk to them a little bit. They said, we've already heard from people there in Uganda, what a blessing you guys have been. What a great thing it was to have your team there. And that just was a really cool answer to prayer. As far as a favorite memory, I thought Sarah was going to take it, but my favorite memory was Gus, the Mahalski's 2-year-old. Holden was instantly a part of our team, jumped right in, made good friends. Gus is a little bit harder to break into, but Sarah and I made pretty good friends with him, and by the end of the week, he had made friends with other people, but we had a good time with him.
That's fun. Personally, boy, I could go all night, but we don't have that. But what God did personally in my own heart is similar to Tyler, to be a doer of the word and not a hearer only. So a specific instance on the trip that I had to live that out, got the opportunity to live that out, was we were discussing, Jeannie and I specifically, were discussing how to build 9 Square. And it was a strong discussion, let's say it that way. We're siblings, by the way, in case you don't know, Jeannie and I. And so, it took me back to my childhood. And my wife very wisely came to me and said, Jared, I think you need to step away for a minute and just think about this. And I was very sleep deprived and many other things, but I can't blame it on any of that. Ultimately, I wanted my way, and it wasn't right. So I had to got to go and seek forgiveness, and it doesn't change, or your circumstance around you, don't change the necessity to continue to live out your faith. And sometimes just the circumstances in our life shake us up a little bit and squeeze us, and then what truly comes out is what's truly in our hearts, and God will reveal that to us. So that was personally something that God did. A lot of other things. A lot of the favorite memories have been shared, and if you want to hear some of my personal favorite memories, you can talk to me later. But I want to take my favorite memory time to thank Andrew for everything that he did. I think we should all clap and thank Andrew. Ba, 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 ba. Wow. Doesn't that feel great, bud? Andrew put in a ton of time and effort into making this trip happen. So thanks, bud. It was fun to watch you lead.
You don't get that yet. Everything everyone has already said. We grew in so many ways. That's Alice.
Alice should go sit on Tyler.
Go sit on Tyler's lap. Not here. Well, what do you say after that? No. I was reading through Colossians as I was there, and that was just such a beautiful reminder of, you can read it here and it talks about who Christ is. And I wrote in my journal of just that Christ is the same Christ that's written about in Colossians is the same here in America as he was in Uganda. And it was so evident in all of the staff members' lives and how they are have deep understanding of who God is and are able to articulate that to the children. So I was blown away by God's work through that. And Jared and I had to apologize to each other. And maybe we should have done it publicly, because we were the 9 Square was a little public. So sorry, guys. We do love each other, but siblings, we grow up, but we're still siblings. So it happens. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Well, Alice just ripping a massive fart up here reminded me of my favorite memory. One of them, we were going to see the rhinos at this rhino sanctuary. All of the rhinos went extinct in Uganda back in the 80s because of poaching, and then Disney Animal Kingdom donated a rhino, and they got another one from Kenya, and they were like starting this process of trying to build the rhino population back. So they were in like this 200-acre sanctuary, and we got to go there, and you get out of the car and walk on foot to where the rhinos are, and we're standing there just like a few dozen yards away from these beasts that could absolutely destroy you if they wanted to. And all of a sudden, one of them just turns over and is like, and our guide is like, they're farting. They communicate by farting. And Hunter's next to me and he goes, I never thought I would hear a rhino rip cheeks. And we all started laughing, and then we're like, shh, the rhinos, they're going to charge us if we're too loud. So the guides were like, it's very important that you stay quiet, otherwise the rhinos will get upset. So we're trying to like stifle our laughter while they're over there just farting it up. Apparently rhinos communicate by farting. Something fun. Animal Planet knowledge for you today. So we're over time. Let me just share very quickly my big takeaway. It's similar to what some people, especially what Emma shared. Many of you were here for our prayer time before we left. And Marilyn Nemmers prayed during that time. And she prayed specifically that God would allow us to bring something that we could leave in Uganda and that we would be able to take something with us. And I thought about that a lot, and it really echoed with a prayer in my own heart. I wanted God to change me, and I wanted him to change the people on this team, and I wanted us to be able to make an impact and make a difference and to be able to leave something in Uganda as well. And I think I was very confident that God was going to use the trip in our lives. I knew that. Like, I was very confident, like, that God was going to work in our hearts. But I had these doubts that we would really be able to make any sort of substantial difference. We're coming from a different culture. You know, we're this very ragtag group of white American people, and we've already learned a lot about how sometimes when we go in thinking that we know the solution to everything and we go into another culture pretending like we have all the answers, you can sometimes end up causing more harm than good. And so I'm just kind of wondering, like, what do we really have to offer these people? They don't need anything from us. I'm confident that we're going to be blessed by it, but I wasn't sure that we were going to effectively be a blessing. And I hope it doesn't sound self-serving to say this, but I mean, probably the most moving part of it was just some of the comments, like around the bonfire, the gentleman that said, like, people have been talking about what you guys have been saying. Jonathan and Alana were just so grateful and genuine in their gratitude towards our team. We received a very kind note from them afterwards. And just from a number of little interactions like that, it was like you made a difference and you left something behind. And we left some tangible things. We got to leave 9 Square there with them, which was really, really cool. We got to leave tools. We got to leave clothing. We got to leave, you know, these bracelets that share the gospel, all of these things that we physically could leave behind, but we left behind a spiritual impact and the memories of our unity and our joy as a team. And I left just very grateful to God because I know that that was all his grace and his mercy in our team and in our lives. But I guess maybe it just sort of leaves me thinking moving forward, and maybe you're like me who sometimes wonders, what difference could I really make? And I think because of Christ, we were able to make a difference, and we were able to make an impact. And maybe I need to be more faithful in doing and trusting that God's going to make the impact, rather than assuming that my actions are just not really that consequential to anything, and oh, woe is me, I'm not that special, I don't have that much to offer, when in fact we do. And all of you have much to offer as well. And the material things were blessings, but the gospel was the greatest blessing of all to these people. And so it was wonderful to be able to leave something behind. And then, as you've heard from all of us, we all took something back as well. So I'm just very grateful to God for his answers to prayer, grateful for the ways that he worked in us and through us, and for keeping us safe and keeping people from bleeding out and keeping everything together. And just a reminder of his sovereignty and all of that. Thank you, all of you, for your prayers, for your financial support, for the ways that you have come behind us. Truly, we would not have gone without you. And so we're just very grateful, and most of all grateful to God. And so I hope that you, as you've listened to all of this, that it's apparent that God gets all the glory, and he's the one that used us and protected us and worked through us. And he can use broken people, broken crayons, still color, and that's all he's got to work with. So very, very grateful. We are going to close in prayer. I was hoping for time for Q&A, but we all talked too long. We would love to talk to you after. If you've got any other questions or specifics, we'd love to talk your ear off about all that God did in Uganda. But Jared, would you close us in prayer?
God, we thank you so much for the opportunity that you've given to many of us to go and to make an impact, albeit a short amount of time, but an impact in Uganda. Thank you for the impact that you have made in our own lives and the lessons that we have learned. We pray that for those that are still there, that we spoke with, the Mahalskis and others that are still working and seeking to have a gospel impact on that community, that you would continue to use your word in people's lives, and you would impact people for eternity, and that even maybe some seeds that were thrown and scattered during our time there, that they would grow deep roots and bear much fruit. Thank you once again for your son and what he has done for us on the cross. I pray, God, that we would never forget even just the basics of the gospel, and that we would continue to grow in our relationship with you. Thank you for this time that we're able to be together and to just report back what you have done. In Jesus' name, amen. Is that it? That's it. Thank you.